My name is Constance. The moment that changed everything was during a family dinner. The room was filled with the clinking of cutlery and the soft murmur of idle conversation. But then, my dad looked me straight in the eye and said, "We spent your savings on someone better." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. The room seemed to close in on me, and for a split second, I couldn't tell if my pounding heart or the sudden silence was louder. I finally managed to choke out, "Better than me?" At that, my grandpa slowly rose from his chair, his face hardening with a look that meant something was about to break. "Name that someone now," he demanded. But this betrayal didn't start at that table. I grew up in a well-to-do family in a big house in the suburbs. My parents were high-powered business people. My dad, Richard, was a cold and calculating man, always focused on results and appearances. My mom, Victoria, was elegant but superficial, more concerned with keeping up a perfect family image than with the feelings of her children. I have a younger brother named Leo. He was the golden child from the start. People always said he had a natural charisma, a talent for making friends, and getting what he wanted. My parents were completely wrapped around his finger. They lavished him with praise, expensive gifts, and all their attention. As I was growing up, birthdays were always a stark contrast. Leo would get the latest video game consoles, designer clothes, and even a jet skiing lesson one year. I, on the other hand, would get a polite pat on the back and a comment like, "Constance, you're so mature. You don't need all these flashy things." School was no different. Whenever I achieved something, like getting the top score in a math exam or winning a painting competition, my mom would give a half-hearted smile, and my dad would mutter about how Leo would excel in time. I was so naive, I actually believed them. When I was 18, I decided I needed to take control of my own future. I got a part-time job at a local bookstore after school. It was a humble job, but I worked hard and saved every penny I could. My dad promised to help me open a savings account, and I trusted him blindly. I thought that's what families do, they support each other. By the time I was 25, I was working full-time as a graphic designer in the city. That savings account was my hope for the future. It was my dream to buy a small apartment, a place where I could truly be myself. I rented a tiny studio in the city, with peeling paint on the walls and a view of a busy alleyway, but it was mine. I decorated it with my own artworks and a small, struggling plant on the windowsill. Even with my new life in the city, I still went back to my parents' house every other weekend. It was mainly for my grandpa, Henry. He was a kind-hearted old man who lived in a cozy cottage on the outskirts of the city. He used to take me fishing when I was a kid and always asked me how I was really doing. His gentle questions were like a warm blanket on a cold day, but I always just smiled and said I was fine. One fateful Wednesday night, after a long day at work, I came home exhausted. I kicked off my shoes, heated up a frozen pizza, and sat down at my rickety table to check my bank account, just like I did at the end of every month. The number on the screen made no sense. I rubbed my eyes, refreshed the page, and checked my Wi-Fi connection. It wasn't just low, it was almost empty. My hands started to shake. I looked at the recent transactions, and there were a series of large payments that I had no knowledge of. Someone had been siphoning money from my account, and they'd been doing it so subtly that I hadn't noticed. The next day, I went to my parents' house as usual. Mom was in the kitchen, making a fancy dinner as if nothing was wrong. Leo was in the living room, playing on a brand new top-of-the-line virtual reality setup. "Nice setup," I said, my voice trembling. He just shrugged and said, "Dad said I needed it for a new gaming course I'm taking." My blood boiled. Mom interrupted, "Constance, be a good sister. Leo is at a crucial stage in his life. Remember how you were at his age." I bit my lip and said, "I was working to save money." She dismissed my comment with a wave of her hand. "That was your choice, and look at you now. You're doing fine." Later that evening, when Mom went to her bedroom to prepare for guests and Leo disappeared into his room to game, Dad came into the kitchen. He opened a drawer, rummaged around, and then slammed it shut with a loud noise. I took a deep breath and said, "Dad, can we talk about my savings account?" He didn't even flinch. "What about it?" He asked coldly. There's a large amount of money missing, I said, my voice steady despite the rage inside me. He simply replied, we used it. Used it? For what? I demanded. For your brother. He needs more opportunities to succeed, he said matter-of-factly. You're already independent, and you have a good job. Leo is still finding his way. I was speechless. All my life, I'd tried so hard not to be a burden, and here he was, telling me that made me less worthy of my own hard-earned money. That night, while everyone was asleep, I sneaked into the kitchen and opened the drawer Dad had rummaged through earlier. Under a stack of old magazines, there was a folder with my name on it. Inside were forms for a large personal loan in my name. I stood there, my hands shaking with a new kind of anger. This wasn't an accident. It was a well-thought-out plan. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, replaying every moment, from the empty account to Dad's cold words. The next day at work, I was in a daze. During lunch, I met my friend, Sarah, at a nearby coffee shop. She took one look at me and said, Constance, you look like you've seen a ghost. I told her everything, my voice shaking with emotion. She was shocked. Constance, that's not only unfair, it's illegal. I know, I whispered, but they think I'll just keep quiet. She looked at me firmly and said, Are they right? I didn't answer, but the fire in my eyes said it all. After work, I drove to Grandpa's house. He opened the door before I even knocked, as if he could sense my distress. What's happened, Constance? He asked, his eyes filled with concern. I followed him into the living room and laid out all my problems, the missing savings, Dad's confession, and the loan paperwork. Grandpa listened intently, his face growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he let out a long sigh. I always suspected your parents were too focused on Leo, but this is unacceptable. They're counting on you to stay silent, but you can't let them get away with it. We spent the next few hours going through the bank statements, making a detailed list of every transaction. Grandpa's hands were slower than they used to be, but his mind was as sharp as ever. You need to document everything, Constance. Keep copies in a safe place, he advised. I nodded. I've already started. He gave me a small, proud smile. When I left Grandpa's house that night, I felt a new sense of determination. I knew exactly when I would confront my parents. They always hosted a big family dinner when Grandpa came to visit, and this time would be no different. When Grandpa called to say he'd be in town that weekend, Mom immediately started planning the dinner. She asked me to come early to help, but I arrived exactly on time, carrying a folder filled with all the evidence. As soon as I entered the living room, I could tell something was off. Mom was fluttering around, adjusting the table settings even though they were already perfect. Leo was sitting in a corner, looking sulky and scrolling through his phone. Dad was standing near the kitchen, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Grandpa was sitting at the head of the table, his cane beside him, his eyes fixed on me. His look gave me the strength I needed. The dinner started like any other. We made small talk, the silverware clinked, and the delicious smell of the roast chicken filled the air. But the tension was palpable, like a storm was brewing. Then, Dad dropped the bombshell. We spent your savings on someone better. The room fell into a dead silence. I could feel Grandpa's angry gaze shift from me to Dad. Leo stopped chewing, his eyes wide. Mom dropped her fork, and it clattered on her plate. I took a deep breath and asked, Better than me? Dad didn't even blink. Leo needs support. You're self-sufficient. It's simple, he said coldly. Grandpa pushed his chair back with a loud scrape and stood up slowly. His presence filled the room. Name that someone now, he demanded. Dad tried to bluster. Dad, this is our family business. We know what's best for our children. Grandpa's eyes were like ice. Oh, I can see exactly what you've done. Your actions are clear as day. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder.
My hands were steady this time.
I've brought something, I said. Dad's face turned pale. Constance. I laid the papers on the table, the bank statements, the transaction details, and the loan paperwork on top. Mom gasped, Where did you get all these? I looked her in the eye and said calmly, "From the drawer you thought I'd never check." Leo leaned forward, confused. "Wait, this money came from your account." Dad snapped at him. "You needed those courses. Don't be ungrateful." Leo shot back, "I never asked you to take her money." Grandpa slammed his hand on the table. "That doesn't make Constance less deserving. It makes her exploited. You took her savings without her permission and tried to open a loan in her name, putting her future at risk just to prop up Leo." Dad's face turned red with anger.
Dad, you don't understand.
"Leo has potential, and he needs a helping hand." Grandpa replied icily, "I understand perfectly well. You've been taking advantage of Constance's kindness for far too long." Mom whispered, "We just wanted to support Leo." Grandpa turned to me. "Constance, tell us what you want to happen now." I took a deep breath. "I want every cent of my savings returned, and I want the loan paperwork destroyed by your hands, not mine."
Dad shook his head.
"You're overreacting. You'll earn the money back." Grandpa cut in, "She shouldn't have to replace what you stole." "You will." Dad's anger turned to fear. Mom's voice trembled. "We don't have that kind of money right now." Grandpa said firmly, "Then you'll have to find a way. Sell something, cut back on your expenses. If Constance files a financial abuse report, the consequences will be severe." There was a long, heavy silence. Finally, Leo spoke up, his voice soft.
"Constance, I'm sorry."
"I didn't know." It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. Dad slumped in his chair and said through gritted teeth, "Fine. We'll return the money." "And the loan?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "I'll shred it tonight." Grandpa nodded, satisfied. "Good. Maybe there's still hope for this family." But I knew things would never be the same. Some damage can't be undone. It just becomes a boundary that should never be crossed again. I gathered my folder and stood up. "I'm going home," I said. No one tried to stop me. For the first time in my life, leaving that house didn't feel like running away. It felt like stepping into a new chapter, a life where I was in control. In the following weeks, my parents returned the money in small, hesitant installments. Each transfer was a silent acknowledgement of their wrongdoing. Grandpa checked on me regularly, either by phone or by dropping by my apartment with some fresh fruit. Leo also started to reach out, saying he was trying to be a better brother. Life in my apartment now feels lighter. I've organized my finances, set new goals, and I'm slowly building the future I always dreamed of. I'm no longer afraid. That family dinner didn't fix my family, but it gave me the strength to draw a line and say, no more. I'm building my life on my own terms, a life where I'm respected, and I won't let anyone take that away from me. And if you've ever had to stand up to the people who are supposed to protect you, remember, you're not wrong for wanting respect, and you're not alone. Share your thoughts below and hit subscribe for more.